When Veach was about 7 years old in Cleveland, Ohio, his brother Tony used him on street corners as a paperweight to keep his newspapers, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, from blowing away. Born March 28, 1918, Veach attended Marquette University, earning a liberal arts degree in 1941. 1 year later, he married Rose Manera and in time produced a family of 6. After World War II, he returned home from Saipan and Guam as a first lieutenant. He worked as a general traffic manager at Albert Trossel and Sons for 22 years and as a distribution manager at Finley Adhesives for 15 years. Now, he and Rose spend their retirement close to home, volunteering at Frodet Lutheran Hospital and serving on various committees for the Italian Community Center and Vesta Italiana. Presently, he has been active with the Knights of Columbus, where he attained his 4th degree in 1988.
Okay, if you could speak directly to future generations, what would you tell them?
Well, I don't think we have enough time in a lifetime for me to point out the goals and aims of the future generations, but perhaps I can explain that better by telling you how I try to instill in my own family, my daughters and my sons, to be honest with themselves, to care for other people, to sympathize, to try to forgive and forget if things do go wrong, and persist in making sure that they lead lives that are exemplary. Maybe not the most famous, but at least model themselves so that they are honest, law-abiding Christians. I remember as a kid, my mother was called in the neighborhood Donna Maria. It's like Lady Maria. The fact that she was very energetic, extremely intelligent, although no formal education at all. Whenever people were in perhaps physical trouble or some worrying about something, they would go to Donna Maria. She was like the wise owl, the sage of the neighborhood. When people were hurt, they would go to my mother because she had the stamina and the capability of handling bloodshed, broken bones, and she was very fearless and very helpful. And that's inspiring. People would come to see her, even if I may recount something which in my mind is purely superstitious, but here's an example. My mother would be approached by people who wanted her to drive away a curse. In the Sicilians call it malocchio, the evil eye, or a lucchiadura. So my mother was one of the few in the neighborhood, as a matter of fact, that's the only one I knew, in the neighborhood that was called upon at times. People would come to her with worries and anxieties, and her method of driving anything that might have been obsessed by the individual, if they had a headache or if they were worried, some bad luck or something impending, she would take a saucer, put water in it, and then drip into the saucer oil. And then in her some esoteric secret language, I call it gibberish, but she would say prayers, and when the oil was dropped onto the water, it would cause, water and oil don't mix, but it would show, the globules would show certain shapes she would interpret And by doing that, somehow this would drive away whatever, if a person had a headache or was worried about something, she thought, and these people thought, well, she had the power and the spirit of driving away this particular system that my mother learned, incidentally, as a child. Years later, I asked my mother how she got this talent. She says, well, in my little town in Sant'Agata de Militello in Sicily, you had to go to church it had to be on a Christmas Eve. You had to learn a certain ritual, a certain language, and that's how you got this power. Of course, in my interpretation nowadays, to me it was purely psychosomatic. You know, I think you can talk a person out of a headache at times, or if you're in that mood, by association, clear away any of the anxieties. So there's a model that I and my sisters and my brothers, and you could see in all of them, that have this spirit of looking at and looking out for other people. Learned by Atsama Yutsa, my mother. As far as my talent, you might say, towards the music, I can't answer. All I know is when I was 4 years old, I was sleeping and I was wakened by a piano that my parents had purchased in Cleveland, Ohio. And it was a piano with rollers on it. The music was amazing. And it just, I thought I was in a dream, and I woke up and there was this piano, and they bought it really for my sister Rose to take piano lessons. And somehow I just walked into this instrument that was in the house and just played around with it and listened. My father liked music. My mother liked music. They were not educated musically, but they had a love for nice, fine sounds, and maybe I had it, and somehow my brothers perhaps concentrated more playing and enjoying themselves outside. As I say, as a youngster, maybe I was a kind of a bookwormish guy, stayed in the house a lot and just strummed around, and that's how the piano thing played. And I talked about my sister Rose being certainly the great mainstay in the Calarco tribe, the family, because of her talent, her love and respect for them and caring for them. Our brother Tony, in his high school days, was a natural comic. If he was in the right, many of us said those days, if my brother Tony had the right press agent, he'd probably have been one of the types of people, a stand-up comedian in the standard of Bob Hope or one of the other funniest guys. He was naturally talented. He's the one that produced the Abba-Dabba Minstrels, which was a minstrel show sponsored by St. Rita's Church in 1940. Very talented and very caring guy. My sister Vivian, the youngest, the only great thing I ever did for that kid was, and that was by accident, she had peritonitis and was dying, and my blood matches hers, and I remember giving her blood transfusions. But you see, much of the activities and the environment there, I was departed because I was not at home very much. Carlo, not much. Carlo, not much. Again, he was a little guy around. He and Chichi, they had their social clubs and their social activities were not very much like mine, because they had tended to gamble more in their lives and have that kind of a free spirited that I was never able to have, and I envy them for that.